Prepare for warp speed as we embark on a voyage through the vast expanse of science fiction in movies and television series. From distant planets to alien civilizations, we delve into the heart of the unknown, unraveling the tales that have captured audiences for generations. Get ready to unlock the secrets of the universe on Code Flix. Hello and welcome to Code Flix, the podcast where we take a deep dive into your favorite sci-fi and fantasy TV shows and movies. I'm Andre Bonner, and in today's episode, I have somebody very special, Mr. Javier Daley. Of course, this episode is a very special one. We'll be talking about Star Wars. Welcome, Javier. Good to have you here.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here on Code Flix. It's a long time coming. And I'm just ready to talk about Star Wars. I've been a fan of Star Wars for so many years. I was never originally a Star Wars fan, but in around second form, when Revenge of the Sith came out, my friends at the time were really into Star Wars. And, to be more a part of the group, you kind of associate yourself. And at the time, I can definitely accredit Star Wars for my fascination of things with very deep lore. Star Wars, as people who know and who maybe don't know, has a very deep and expansive lore. And it really and truly expanded my horizons of imagination. And part of the reason, I'm the man I am today. So yeah, get ready to talk about Star Wars. People get ready for a very interesting and exciting show. Especially if you're a Star Wars fan, yeah man, just sit back, relax, get your snacks, and we're about to have a grand time.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you.
Yeah man.
So I believe there is a lot we can talk about this particular series. Star Wars is such a vast lore, and we can start perhaps by talking about how the impact of Qui-Gon Jinn's role in things, and then we can take it from there, right?
But when Qui-Gon Jinn approaches the Jedi Council about the return of the Sith, they don't believe him because the Sith have been gone for 1,000 years. So they're like, no, there's no way that there can be another Sith Lord, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also, it also mirrors, the Jedi Council also mirrors the modern day church, in that they have become so complacent in their ways that they have not been able to modernize and really see the world or the galaxy in that sense for what it is and work on it. Because what's happening, and that's the genius behind George Lucas's writing and the plan of Darth Sidious, is that he uses the disillusionment of the Jedi against them. Because what he does is that the people have subtly become disillusioned with them because they're inaction. And so when war ensues and the Jedi become now de facto generals and de facto, in a sense, police of the entire galaxy, the people then now look at them differently. Where you have a set of them, of course, that look at them as saviors because the separatists are attacking their planet, versus the others, that's the Jedi as occupiers. Similar to how you would see like the United States, if they invaded Iraq. Of course, you have some people who say, yeah, you've come to save us from Al-Qaeda. And then you have a lot of other people who are like, you are occupying our land. You are a foreign force. You are here to impose your will against us. You are no better than the separatists, right? The other kind of similarity in a religious sense is the whole thing behind Anakin. Anakin has no father. Canonically, Anakin has no father, and his mother, I think her name is, or something like that. She implies this when Qui-Gon Jinn meets her and meets Anakin and realizes this youth is powerful, he's strong in the Force is with him. he asks his mother, who's his father? And his mother basically replies, he has no father. He just came.
Right. Is that ever know?
Which, and so the lore is, the theory out there is that Anakin is a byproduct of the Force itself, impregnating his mother to bring him forward to be the balance now between the good side and the Force, and bring balance to the Force. Because that is the funny thing that people don't realize, that again, we go back to the Jedi have been in power for 1,000 years.
Right.
The Force has been unbalanced towards their side. Yeah?
Unbalanced.
Anakin, right, unbalanced. So Anakin has actually come to balance back the Force towards the dark side. Yes? And then with the culmination with his son Luke at the end of Return of the Jedi, brings the Force back into the middle. Yeah? It's a push and pull, really and truly, a duality. Yes?
Right.
And it's very rare you get a balance in the Force per se. Because you have to have good and you have to have evil to have a balance. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really funny how it's all brought back, but the biblical connotations in the movie are not lost.
Yeah. I do agree with that, because a lot of persons, they really don't look at it at that deep level, that, you know, it was supposed to happen that way, basically. And so, you know, it was the will of the Force from the beginning to have all of those things play out the way they did. And, you know, it makes a good story, I'm telling you. But at the same time, it also reminds us that even in life, a lot of persons will look at it and say, hey, you know, you can't really understand the full length of what is good until you understand the evil side of things, you know, or you understand what is really, really bad. And that, you know, mirroring society in that way, right? Because I think that was one of George Lucas's goals, was to mirror society in a lot of those ways, because even the language barrier, Jar Jar Binks speaks a certain way, the way how, you know, different aliens speak. And, you know, it was just kind of bringing that idea of, hey, you know, this is, you know, our world. This is how we look at things. So he was trying to also bring down those stereotypes that we have.
He was showing us the diversity of the Star Wars universe and the kind of characters he was introducing us to, and the new elements, you know, of this new imagination that he was taking us into, you know, so that we could blend more into it. Certain similarities, because even if you look at, I forget his name, the guy who captured Anakin's mother and was basically the slaver, his accent is almost like a Spanish or Italian mixed with English kind of accent. You know, it's a relatable accent, even though it's an alien, clearly an alien. It has an accent that we humans could say, hey, that sounds like a guy from over there. You know, so even though it was a strange thing, we could still be drawn into it in how he executed that kind of thing. The little subtleties of those characters.
Right.
And the world building.
Yeah, and speaking of the world building, because what you notice is that the star systems are pretty much aligned to the way how we have continental or cultural differences, you know? So taking it up, you know, for example, the desert planet, you notice that, you know, the way how people act there, you know, the dressing and all of that, the costumes and so on, are designed to be so similar to what we are used to, you know? And, you know, even the way how Coruscant is portrayed, it is portrayed as if it's saying, hey, this is America. This is what we feel like. We feel like we are the rulers.
Like New York.
So, you know, it's almost like the capital of the world, that is, you know, and they portray themselves that way. The way how what those aliens name again? The guys where they put an embargo on the planet in Phantom Menace. What name again? I can't remember their name, but they look like Chinese or Asian people.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's just crazy.
They're very subtly Asian. They even have a subtly Asian accent. If you pre.
Mhm. Yes.
So
Yes.
what the dog? You can't talk the dog. They
Yeah.
talk with a little bit of like a Chinese
With that.
accent, you
Oh
know?
man, it's just like, yeah, you know? Yeah, man. So I mean, we did talk about the the balance being kept, and we talked about, you know, how we touched on what Anakin's role was in that, and how his life would have played out is that he would have started out as a child just being this prodigy wherever he went. Even though he was a slave, he was the best of slaves to his slave master. And you know, his life from there on, you know, once he was discovered, changed. There's a shift because it was him just doing what he wanted to do, and then him being able to know, him being thrown into a world where he would have to comply. He would have to work within a particular schedule and stuff, because the Jedi basically, when they take the training, then basically I say, hey, listen, it's almost like,
As you say, it's almost like a religious order.
yeah, the order. So you know, say, boy, once they go and there's some, you know, say certain things cut off.
Mm-hmm.
They can't
Like
have attachments.
if you became a monk, because that's how they see the Jedi. You know, they see them as religious figures in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So when you become a Jedi, you have to go through this religious, what you call schedule, this religious. There's a word I'm looking for. Routine, a very religious routine as how you live your life, how you become a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because in the whole runnings of the movie, and that is why Phantom Menace is so important, even though people think it's kind of boring, most of the sagas. We have to talk about the two main characters of the film, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon Jinn is Obi-Wan Kenobi's master, while Qui-Gon Jinn is the Padawan. Padawan being like a trainee, you know, like a protege. And every master is to grow his Padawan into being a full-fledged Jedi. They end up on this planet, which is, I believe, Tatooine. I think it's Tatooine. It's Tatooine. I believe that planet is Tatooine. I'm not sure. But anyway, they end up on this planet and meet this woman, meet this child. And it's funny, you know, because the events of the movie plays out simply because of a lack of funds. Yeah, the ship is damaged, and Qui-Gon and what's his name, the slaver guy, yeah, Watto is the alien's name on Tatooine, and he doesn't accept alien credits. Yeah, so because of that, they have to go through this whole rigmarole with him for Anakin race him freedom and ultimately that leads to Anakin leaving the planet with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. The problem with that is, and again, it goes back to the brilliant writing of George Lucas in the lore, that in the whole runnings of the Jedi Order, usually what they do is that they take children who are very, very young. Why do they do this? Because when you're very, very young, you have not yet formed attachments to people. And as a Jedi, you cannot be attached to people.
Right.
Especially the attachment to a parent. Anakin, by this point, is about 9 or 10 and is, because of that, very much attached to his mother, because she's the only real person he's ever known up to this point and loved. So when they take him away from her, this leaves a hole in Anakin. Yes, that he longs for her and he longs to see her, which when we reach to Attack of the Clones and he's older, he goes to see her only to realize she's been taken slave by the Tuscans and basically tortured to the point of death. And he literally finds her right as she's about to die. This causes Anakin to go into a rage and kill that entire Tuscan village. Yes, as he goes on to tell Padme he killed the women and the children too, not just the men. Something a Jedi would never do. This is how they subtly show us that Anakin has a dark side. Not even just subtly, very outwardly shows that Anakin is slowly turning to the dark side. But this starts from in A Phantom Menace with him losing his mother, going off to the Jedi Order. And there are theories that I have seen that say that Anakin would have never become Darth Vader had Qui-Gon Jinn not died. Because the way it was supposed to go, and you see that when Qui-Gon even takes Anakin to the Jedi Council, and he says, I will be his master. They say, no.
Yes.
Yeah. They say, no, you can't. You already have Obi-Wan. You can't have two Padawan at a time. Right? It's not until Anakin is killed. And what happens is with Qui-Gon, sorry. With Qui-Gon's death and with Obi-Wan killing, his name just jumped out of my head and I don't know. Darth Maul. Killing Darth Maul in the Duel of Fates. Yes? Again in the writing, because Duel of Fates in itself is literally an Easter egg to the fate of Anakin Skywalker, or the fate of the galaxy. That is why it's called the Duel of Fates. In that, he basically passes his Jedi training in an unorthodox way and is graduated to become a Jedi Knight. And becoming a Jedi Knight takes on Anakin as his Padawan. But there's an issue here, and it's obvious to anybody who's listening and know. Obi-Wan is young. he just became a Jedi, full-fledged Jedi. Yes? You give him student for teach. What you know? What you know about the Force? What you know about being a Jedi more than for the last 5 minutes? You understand me? So, but it's almost out of necessity that this happens. Yes? And the connection, because it'll be weird giving Anakin to Plo Koon or Mace Windu or somebody like that. Obi-Wan already had a connection with Anakin from their meeting and their time on Tatooine. So that is, as I said, almost out of necessity, they became Master and Padawan. And their relationship is fledged out throughout the Star Wars movies and series throughout that period to show that they have a... In Clone Wars, they show you the evolution of Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship. And they have a very father and son, younger brother, bigger brother kind of relationship dynamic, you know?
Right.
But with that, is because Anakin always feels like he's more than he is. Because he knows he's the chosen one. They've told him as much. Yeah?
Right.
And they've been grooming him as much.
I think that was a mistake, you know. I truly believe that was a mistake.
Mace Windu, I think, says at one point that he thinks it's a mistake telling him he was the chosen one. And grooming him as the chosen one, him sure make it happen.
Yeah.
But because of that, they have their disagreements throughout that bolsters Anakin's dark side, if you will. Bolsters his disillusionment with the Jedi Order. Draws him closer to Padme, which ends up them having a relationship. And that throws everything out of whack because, as they say, it's almost like a religious order, like the priesthood or being a monk. You can't have no wife. Yeah? You can't have children. And Anakin was doing this. Right. And Anakin was doing all of this behind the Jedi Order's back.
Oh, yeah.
Being at the same time manipulated emotionally and mentally by Darth Sidious under the guise of Emperor Palpatine or Chancellor Palpatine. It was the Emperor yet.
Yes.
Chancellor Palpatine. And even if we talk about that, Palpatine ascends to power in Phantom Menace. by using the separatist war as a catalyst to oust the current chancellor, and with his inaction towards them, allowing them to invade Naboo and attack Naboo. Yes, they voted for a vote of no confidence, and so he lost his seat. Palpatine, being from Naboo, and with that whole rile up and everything that happened there, gained a whole heap of goodwill amongst the Senate. Yeah,
Right.
and so was almost in like a quick vote, in like a quick landslide victory. Palpatine used that to vote himself, basically, put himself into power as chancellor. Then used the war as a catalyst to give himself more and more executive power to do as he felt and do as he pleased in the name of peace and in the name of the Republic. The Jedi began to see this because they saw Palpatine, especially because there was in Revenge of the Sith, I can't remember what happened, but something happened. And I remember the scene because Jar Jar is actually the one. Jar Jar of all people becomes a Senate member. But Jar Jar is the one to propose. He's the one to propose that Palpatine be granted emergency powers, which basically means that he now has complete authority over everything. He can say, yo, do this, and it can just happen. Yeah, it's like if the president enacted martial law or something like that. You understand me? When just take executive power, and don't need to now consult the Senate or any other executive body. It's just him. Yeah? And then use that power to consolidate himself as emperor. Yeah? But with that, the Jedi said, hold on, all right, you got executive powers and you did that legally. However, with the killing of General Grievous in Revenge of the Sith, them say, okay, the war is over. We've killed Dooku. Grievous is dead.
But we set out to do
the two figureheads of the war. The war is over. You must now relinquish your power and give your power back to the Senate and to the people. Palpatine wasn't doing that.
No, he was going at all.
He was just going on and on, doing what he pleased, to the point where and that is how he manipulated Anakin with his power, because he was just like, oh, it's almost like a mommy daddy situation, with the Jedi Order being mommy and Palpatine being daddy. Mommy, I want so and so. No, you can't have so and so. Daddy, I want so and so. No problem. Well, you want so and so? All right, here, yeah. Or in a vice versa, where you go to daddy and you say, daddy can have so and so. No, you can't have so and so. And you go to mommy, and mommy is like, why are you so and so? Why are you telling him you can't have so and so? No, you can't have so and so. Yes, that was Palpatine. The Jedi Order would say, for example, him becoming a master. The Jedi Order did not want him to become a master because they did not think he was ready to become a master. Palpatine was like, make Anakin a master. I want him to be a master. Forcing him to be a master. But in making him a master and knighting him as a master, Anakin expected to become a member of the council. And the Jedi Council was like, yeah, no. No. And Palpatine has no say in the affairs of the Jedi Order, in which he can say, you are now a de facto member of the Jedi Council, and we just can't do anything about it. Guess what? That's exactly what happened. Anakin, Palpatine forced the Jedi Order's hand to make Anakin de facto member of the Jedi Order. Simply for the reason that Anakin could feed information to him. Anakin was essentially a mole. Yes. Not only that, it served two purposes. One, to feed information to Palpatine, and two, to put Anakin inside the minds of the rest of the Jedi Order to see how they thought and see that they were indeed corrupt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That when cause him know that Anakin there and him hearing them talk, and Anakin is abrasive. So him going say, no, that is wrong. We should do X, Y, and Z. And the rest of the Jedi others look upon him and say, Anakin, please shut up and sit down.
Mm-hmm.
While you are a member of this council, you have no real say. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Bill. And then they must go on to do what they want. And naturally that make Anakin feel. And them feel that way. I'm saying, oh, so them boy,
Mm-hmm.
them up to no good. They're up to, and it just made it easier for Palpatine to change it, to sway his mind
Mm-hmm.
away from
Right.
the
Right into
Jedi
his ear.
over to the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, and I think this is the moment where he really and truly gave it more thought than he should have. But in doing that, he should have been like, you know too much. You should have turned to Palpatine and say, you know too much. And I think I
Yeah.
should investigate it because in
Mm-hmm.
Revenge of the Sith, and it's funny, we're talking about a lot of Revenge of the Sith. It's really Phantom Menace. But in Revenge of the Sith, there's an opera scene where Anakin goes to see Palpatine at this. He's watching his opera,
Mm-hmm.
and they're talking. And in the conversation, because Anakin is basically sharing with Palpatine his fears and his disillusionment with the Jedi Order as it's subtly taking place and slowly creeping in. And in that whole running, he
Mm-hmm.
almost implies the whole Padme situation. And Palpatine goes on to tell him a story about a Sith Lord called Darth Plagueis, who discovered a way how to cheat death and could keep the ones he loves from dying. And Anakin says, is there a way to learn this power? And Palpatine replies, not from a Jedi. No, rational thinking person would have said to themselves, hold on, how do you know about this? Who told you this story? Where is this information from? How you know this? And you see it so matter of factly. Yeah, like almost implying that I could learn it from you. That you know this thing from me and you could teach me these things. How can you teach me these things? You're not, as far as everybody, including me, know, you are a civilian. You are not attuned with the force or anything like that. You are just a regular politician. What you know about these things? Immediately, any other person would have run to the Jedi Council and say, yo, you see Palpatine? We have to go check him out viciously, you know. Viciously. Because he knows too much. And he knows too much about the dark side. When I am around him, I can feel the dark side present. Yoda, Mace, anybody, one out, just go amongst him for a little while. Hit amongst him for a little while and listen to him talk. You gonna see it. This man is clearly the Sith Lord. But Anakin, because now he's emotionally invested. His thing is, this man can save my wife from dying because he's been seeing through the force. He's been having force vision that Padme is going to die, specifically in childbirth. So the more he sees her getting bigger, is the more he's like, I need to find a way how to save her, and becomes more and more desperate to do so. And it becomes even worse because of this whole Jedi Council thing. Him know him can't go to them. He knows he can't go to Yoda and say, hey, Yoda, so here's the situation. Stay with me. He knows he can't go to Obi-Wan and say, Obi-Wan, here's the situation. Stay with me. Help me.
That whole thing of him not being able to go to them directly to talk is because of the rift that Palpatine would have created for him and the council. So as you
Right.
mentioned earlier, basically Palpatine has been puppeteering from the behind the scenes. He has been doing all of this, making Jar Jar Binks a part of the Senate, making all of the different strings, pulling little strings. You notice many times they show Palpatine walking and talking with these people like a normal, casual person because what? He was whispering into their ears. He was singing sweet music to them, basically, to just do certain things, subtle little things that would put
Yes.
him where he needs to be, and
Mm-hmm.
to enable him to be able to do even more stuff, to puppeteer even more things. And so
On that
he would
topic,
have been,
on that,
it would have been a thing if Skywalker, Anakin would have been just going back to just tell them, because them now go listen to him, because they must say, yo, Palpatine have female ears, and him probably just come back and tell we this now because Palpatine tell him to do this. But they didn't realize, as you rightly mentioned, that whole that they should have been investigating that as well. That, hey, this man have a whole pan, somebody who is a part of this who he has made a part of this council. So basically, he's like, all right,
mm-hmm.
we are watching him, but they're not watching him as keenly as they need to. And I
As they
think
need
at
it.
some point they did say, like them that said to him, so we need you to tell we want to go on with Palpatine too. But it's like him I say, why me need for do that? That not really,
Yeah, he
I mean,
found
it's
telling on the Jedi Council about Palpatine as distrustful, but he
mhm.
found telling Palpatine about the Jedi Council just what was supposed to happen. He never see a problem with that.
Never see a problem with that at all, because that it would have been that person who he trusted the most now. That person who
Right.
him could have confided in a certain thing. So that's why he would be able to, tell him all those stories about, you know, the Sith Lord, and him would just sit down and just take it as this is a very interesting thing. And maybe he's not so bad. 'Cause you've met people and you're like, these people have been pariahed, but then you get to talk to them and deal with them on a certain level, and you relate to them certain way. But then,
It's not so
you
bad.
don't know their true intentions at the end of the day. So, that's why they say you have to always watch out and be careful of certain things, because, certain people's actions, actions speak louder than words, as them say. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to forget this point. But going back to
No, I hear you.
this is unknown, but this contract is made between the Kaminoans and the Republic. Yes? In so that he leaves breadcrumbs that in Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan, following that Cypher-Diaz trail, because Cypher-Diaz is killed. Yes, he's murdered off by Palpatine. Following that Cypher-Diaz trail, finds himself on Kamino. And in speaking with them, they're like, oh, yeah, your army is ready for you. Because that's why they think he's there. Yeah, he doesn't go there like, hey, I'm here to find Cypher-Diaz. You know where he is? He comes almost like a diplomat, yeah, to seek information in very subtle ways. But in going there and speaking with them, they're like, oh, a Jedi, he must represent the Republic. Look, here's your grand army. It's almost finished. Yeah, and Obi-Wan is like, huh? Grand army? Looking out at thousands and thousands of clones and armaments and battle weaponry and all of that. Why is this? Only for the attack on Genosha, and the attack on Genosha to take place. Yes, where the separatists now full force going out into the galaxy against the Republic. Now the war has started, essentially. Guess what the Republic's gonna need? An army. So boom, on Genosha, the clones get the first taste of battle. Yes, and are basically emergency. It's not like the Senate or the Jedi Council really have time to say, well, we never really commissioned this army. Who commissioned this army? Yeah, we didn't commission this army. Maybe we should look into this a little bit more.
Yeah,
They
they didn't
never
have
had
time
the
to.
time to do that. They were like, we need an army. We literally have one waiting right there. Ship them over immediately. Yeah? Into war they go. Not realizing this is a part of Palpatine's plan from the start, and every single solitary clone has a chip inside them that is voice activated by Palpatine, that when he says a certain phrase, they immediately turn to his side and kill and enact his will without question. Yes? So when Order 66 takes place, this is something inbuilt in every clone. that when they hear that turn of phrase, it's almost like if somebody was hypnotized, like MK Ultra, if you're aware of that whole thing. Like a born situation where you are triggered by a certain word or phrase and you go from a regular civilian into now a tactical operative. Yes? Without you even really think about it. Your brain just go, bam, I am now in war mode. I am now in battle mode. I'm doing this. Yeah? That's what happens to the clones. And the clones go on a massacre, killing almost every single and solitary Jedi on Palpatine's word. Is a master play by Palpatine. Seen? Because he gives them the very people who are going to kill them, that them have to work with. And they are now dispersed throughout the entire galaxy. They are now with every single Jedi. It's the perfect plan. So when he eventually goes to the Order 66, which is his complete takeover of the galaxy, and ascent to Emperor. And again, it's a beautiful plan because what happened? He sets up the Jedi in such a way, and the war is not there for any real other purpose except to make the galaxy more disillusioned with the Jedi. This constant war, and the Jedi taking more and more war roles, yes, and with more war powers, made the galaxy disillusioned with them. There are very few planets that saw them as good or as friends. So when Order 60, it's almost like Hitler in that sense, where in very subtly turned the minds of the Germans against the Jews. So when the exterminations happened, the Germans never really thought much of it, because they're like, yeah, fuck the Jews. So when Order 66 took place, the Republic never really think much of it. They're like, yeah, fuck the Jedi. They're evil. We don't see them as corrupt from a long time. Get them out. Long time. And they saw Palpatine now as almost like this hero figure. So when Palpatine is like, to secure the safety of the Republic, I am now ascending myself to Emperor. And this is now the new Empire. And there was a rounding applause from the Senate.
Exactly.
Padme and a few others. Senator name? Not Amadala. He have another name. But it's only like a few people, just a few people in the Senate were just like, holy shit, democracy is dead. This man now rules us all. The rest of the people were like, yeah. There's a saying, those who sacrifice their freedoms for safety deserve neither. And this is essentially what the Senate had done. They had sacrificed their freedoms to Palpatine to feel safe. And in that, allowed themselves to be ruled by a dictator, by an emperor. Yeah? Decades until... But yeah, as going back to the whole Germans thing, because there's a very strong similarity between the empire and Hitler-controlled Germany during World War II. Because while the Germans wanted Hitler in power, when he came to power, they wanted this. Yeah? It's not until they realized they had Gestapo at every fucking corner. You understand me? Everywhere they go, there were police. And when a man step up and say, yo, this not look too good in a war going on. Anybody have any more burning concerns they'd like to share? No, we're good. And that is the moment they're like, oh, I think we've made a terrible mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing in Star Wars. When them realize them did have Stormtrooper at every corner. And then when a man step up and say, this not right, and them gunning down in the street, everybody say, oh, I think we've made a mistake here.
Yeah.
You understand me? But they were too late, because the people who literally were there to defend you against this kind of thing, gonna make them massacre them. You applauded their execution. And so now you're up on your own.
Yeah.
Palpatine, in my opinion, one of the greatest villains in all. Emperor Palpatine, Emperor Darth Sidious, One
And
of the
he
greatest
mirrors
villains of all fiction.
he mirrors Adolf Hitler in a lot of ways because
Yeah,
even the historical context around what you were saying earlier, it's very, very relevant because a lot of persons that I know have watched the Star Wars, and that's where they discovered the similarities between the way how the narrative meshes so well with what happened to the Jews, and a lot of persons didn't understand the real thing because you just hear say, oh, them they kill 1 million Jews over there, so but you don't understand what took place and how it came to be that this situation, lasted for so long, or for the little time that
for
it
so
even
long.
lasted. It was like years to some people. It was like
Decades.
a million
Because Hitler came
years.
in I think, about 35 and
Mm-hmm.
he died in 45. So they're at least there for about 10 years. But as I said, it's interesting to see how dictators like that came to power with the support of the people, lasted in power and maintained power with the support of the people. And it's not until the very end did people really begin to see what was going on. It shows you
Mm-hmm.
the mental gymnastics that we as human beings are willing to do
Will
to
do.
just
Yeah.
simply go about our everyday lives
Mm-hmm.
as we feel like
To
we
live
should,
our
you
life.
know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because a man can simply influence you in a certain kind of way through the media, through simply word of mouth and rumor, through conjecture, through all of these things to make you have a certain impression on reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so when events begin to transpire, it's become so normalized to you that you don't question it, even though a year, 2 years time, a little bit back would have shown you say, yo, you wouldn't accept this. You would never have gone along with this kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
because of your conditioning by the
Right.
powers that be, it is now everything is jiggy. You see me?
Mm-hmm.
So when Palpatine Sidious can build an entire ship, yeah, to
Mm-hmm.
destroy one planet, one device, yeah, a massive
Mm-hmm.
thing at the size of a moon called the Death
Mm-hmm.
Star. That and he's now going around destroying planets by planets. At
Mm-hmm.
what point do you say, boy, it don't look too good for you, something I've got to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You see me?
Yeah.
Something I've got to do.
And the funniest thing, a lot of persons would be on his side, same way at that, even at that point, because, the narrative or the propaganda that is being given to them and being fed to them taking wholesale. Because, as you
Right.
mentioned, with even the, the, the Nazis, the propaganda that was out there, other person didn't even think. They were just only fed this idea that, hey, this is just the way all things are to be because we need to ensure
Mm-hmm.
that we are safe or whatever the situation they felt good about, to allow all of this to happen. And that whole idea of the concept, come up in the mind, George Lucas, I think was just him basically putting pen to paper to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing with society. This is where I think we need to look at is, bringing, and that's why I like Family Guy as well, because Seth MacFarlane
Mm-hmm.
says it all the while. I bring a mirror, a magnifying glass basically to look at what reality is. It's not necessarily about the jokes, but also about the commentary that he
Right.
he puts into the scripts. Yeah.
It's really good when it comes on to social commentary. A lot of the stuff that happening nowadays, I said to people, South Park predicted a decade or more ago.
Oh yeah.
With the whole trans movement and the ideologies that they are pushing, South Park knew a decade ago or more and was showing you, hey, if you do this, this is what is going to happen in society. And
Mm-hmm.
so said, so done. I think, going back to Star Wars, I think that whole trilogy, prequel trilogy, also in a lot of ways mirrored what was happening at the time with the Afghan war and the Iraq war and George Bush. I remember me myself personally saw that and identified the two, because I would admittedly say I am one of those people who don't believe 9/11 was one of those things that just happened. Yeah. I do believe the government had some insider knowledge and some hand in how that day played out for their own personal gain. And so I looked at George Bush as Palpatine, as Sidious, in playing both sides of the war so that you can't lose. Yeah. I instigate the event that then now leads me to have to then do this and then going in, and that only brings me more power. You know? So I don't know. I've heard other people say it, that was George Lucas throwing that in there to give that sprinkle of real life and what was going on at that time. But as I say, it overall, it shows you in the messaging that you cannot give way to that kind of thinking, to authoritarianism, that a man can just come and say, yo, I saw things to go, and you just say, yeah, man, I saw it to go. I think that is the spirit behind the rebellion in going against the empire, going against the evils of the world, to try and again set our balance, you see me, and give us a new hope, if you will.
Yes.
But but as I said, that's one of the beauties behind Star Wars and its storytelling, the depth of it. Some people may watch Star Wars, and that is why I'm gonna say, like, I whenever somebody said I'm not into it, I always ask them why. And if them say, boy, you know, the bugger, this, that, and the force, and I just foolishness, man. Really. I say, all right, we can't really deal with you because you're not a deep thinker in that sense.
Yeah.
Anybody who's a deep thinker and I'll dismiss something like that just off the blue. Yeah. Them going to want to know even a little bit more about it. See? Or at least just say, yeah, man, that is your thing, whatever. I'm not in this, but me in this still. You see, me prefer this kind of thing. I'm a Star Trek person. Because you have Star Trek people who are not Star Wars people.
Star Wars
people like me who are not Star Trek people. Yeah. But at the same time, we can overstand and accept and respect each other's views because we live in that world. You see me?
Right.
And in that world of science fiction, we are all one.
That is true. We have to come to understand ourselves through science. As a human species, that is what we do. We try to ensure that we are understanding the world around us. We not stop ask questions. That is what science is all about. Asking the questions that need to be answered. Right? So certain things we're not going to have the answer right now, but we're going to try and figure them out. Since Star Wars has been produced and shown on screen, many persons who have grown up in the science fiction genre have become, some of the greatest scientists of all time, and some of the greatest deep thinkers, when it comes to these things.
Yes.
So its relevance in society it cannot be understated. And as you said before, some persons might like it, some persons might dismiss it. But at the end of the day, we have to reconcile that there are things to this world that we can relate to, especially with a show like this, Star Wars, or even, Star Trek. I'm a Trekkie, by the way, but it's
I figured
one of those things that you get an understanding of, and and if you understand it and you love it, because you can understand it and don't like it. If you understand it and you love it, then that's fine.
There's one thing two things actually I want to bring up.
Yeah, man.
Before we really move on. The cinematography of Star Wars, and that
Production.
direction by George Lucas and others, that whole production. was very revolutionary for its time and still was revolutionary when they were doing the Phantom Menace, Clone Wars, and Return of the Sith trilogies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The techniques that they use, the technology that they use, the kind of production that was taking place was far beyond its years. Anybody can go onto YouTube and watch the behind the scenes production of A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, as well as see the production of the Phantom Menace production is very interesting. Yes, because it's them coming back after so many years and trying to recreate this world, but in a more modern sense. George Lucas was panned very heavily when Phantom Menace came out for his heavy use of CGI, not realizing that he was actually pioneering that kind of use of CGI in the Hollywood scene that would echo on for decades to come. That even now is still being improved upon by people like James Cameron, who saw that kind of ambition and then looked to do something even more ambitious, like Avatar and that entire series, right? So it shows how inspirational Star Wars was in more than just an imaginative way, yeah, but also in an ambitious way, also in a production way. To speak on that, I also have to speak on the second thing, the music. John Williams does an incredible job on the score of Star Wars because he scores, I think he still scores Star Wars and does the music for Star Wars, the soundtracks for Star Wars to this day. Yes. So when you hear the binary sunset, the iconic the Imperial March, the Duel of Fates, these scores, these soundtracks are so iconic throughout history, throughout film, not just through science fiction or throughout all of pop culture itself. These scores are iconic, they're timeless. You would see them in other movies that don't have anything to do with Star Wars. You will see them in series. You mentioned Family Guy. How many times have you watched Family Guy and seen or heard that Star Wars music? And automatically your brain don't think twice. You know this is Star Wars, and you know where from Star Wars it's from. You understand me? So it goes to show the incredible production that went behind this movie, why it is so great, why people see it the way they see it, is because it was a pioneer. It was a pioneer in a lot of ways that it still continues to this day to inspire, to help create, to go on and give people this feeling, yeah, whenever they watch something like that and can identify with it and can feel, like I'm entertained.
You can't say anything better but to say that this particular series, this saga, has left an indelible mark on our lives, and it will continue to, even for the foreseeable future, it will continue to do so because of its ahead of the time production, the concept, the ideas behind why these things are, and so many things are so relevant because, yes, there are some things in there that I think humanity should learn by now, but still, it still continues to happen. In my lifetime, I've seen just I see certain things happening like on repeat, and I'm like, there it goes again. The Ukraine war, for instance. People look at it and everybody takes side and I say, hey, this shouldn't happen, that shouldn't happen, and who should be, but they don't look at what is happening, what the forces that are behind some of these things. So as we were talking about some of our interpretations and things, and some of the things that really stood out to us, and we see where Anakin has inclinations for the Force and great inclinations, because that is where it was at. But the story of becoming that man that would then become the iconic Darth Vader, wouldn't have just happened just so. And, though it has its great points, there are some things that I think could have been done a little bit better. One of the things that I thought could have been done better was the whole fight with Anakin and Obi-Wan when they were on the planet Mustafar. I felt like, it was just, it was just too one-sided. Of course, you probably don't want to have like a 40-minute fight. Like a 40-minute fight, but but
I thought it was a fair fight. Balanced road, to be honest with you.
What I felt could have happened better for the fight, you see, is the fact that Obi-Wan seemed to have, well, he had the upper hand from before, because as you say, with the Force, you have to be in control, be relaxed, you're not using too much of your emotions. If you're overly emotional, you're gonna have, it's gonna be difficult for you, or it's gonna make things a little bit too easy for your opponent to exploit your emotions. And that part was good, but I felt like he could have it could have been more of a fight between Yoda, like with Yoda and what's his name, when they were fighting inside of the Senate.
Sidious.
With Darth Sidious.
Sidious.
And they had a certain balance that was being kept, even though Darth Sidious was inheriting evil, and he was taller than him. He had a different weight class than Yoda. So there was still a certain balance because Yoda kept his own. So I felt like that little part is not like a big thing, but that little part, that Anakin could have been a little bit more balanced in that way against Obi-Wan, even though Obi-Wan teaching most of the ropes still. So yeah, it kind of would have made sense to go that direction, but still they could have showed that he was trying to be even better than his master. He could have whipped out some new technique or something, to kind of get an upper hand. But I felt like it was more skewed towards...
It's funny that you said that. I was saying that I find it interesting that, because I see it the other way around. I thought that Palpatine and Yoda's fight was more geared towards Palpatine, and the fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan was more geared towards Anakin. The Anakin one specifically because Anakin at this point was actually his strongest point. He's more powerful right then and there than he would be when he becomes Darth Vader. Yeah? He knows Obi-Wan. That's why I think it's such a balanced fight, because he knows Obi-Wan's style as well as Obi-Wan knows his. You mentioned you're surprised he never busted out like a new technique or move. And I'm like, but he did. He did. And he lost half his body for it. He got chopped in half for it. Yeah. That whole thing, that battle, because I've heard people say, like people who in the whole Star Wars thing, authorities who can speak on this kind of thing, who said that ultimately Anakin was stronger than Obi-Wan. And if he didn't do what he did, would eventually have beaten. Yeah. Obi-Wan's style is more of his because you have different forms of lightsaber combat. And Obi-Wan's form, I think, is Juyo or something like that. And it's a very defensive form. Yeah. Anakin's form is actually the opposite of his. It's a very offensive form. Yeah. And if you notice what he was using, you mentioned it still, that he was emotional during the fight. Because one of the things he was doing was using his hatred to fuel his power, to outpower Obi-Wan Kenobi. But because of Obi-Wan's defensive style, he's able to counteract it. Yes? Going into the crux of the fight, as he says, he had the higher ground. This was a lesson that Anakin was subtly being shown for throughout the entire series that he should never have done this. Yeah, he was subtly being taught this lesson by Obi-Wan of the higher ground, and so for him to, he was so drunk with power, yeah, that he thought that he could kill Obi-Wan in that one move, not realizing that it would cost him everything. Yes. So, in terms of doing better, as I said, my whole gripe with it is I hate how Anakin is told basically by Palpatine, hey, I'm a dark side person. I'm a member of the dark side, and Anakin is just like, oh, let's just keep that between us, shall we? Yeah. Another thing that I found very fucked up, and it leads back to that, is when he literally tells him, I am the Darth Lord, I am the Sith Lord. Yeah? And Anakin is like, well, you know, I have to go tell the Jedi Council, because no, you straight up tell me you're the Sith Lord who we've been looking for all this time. And it's kind of fucked up that you're both the Sith Lord and the Chancellor and has been under our nose this entire time. So, yeah, goes to the Jedi Council, tells Mace Windu and them, say, yo, all right, yo, because at this time Yoda is on Kashyyyk. He's on Kashyyyk with Chewbacca's people.
Yeah, true.
So the available Jedi, master Jedi from the council, are basically the ones that he brings. Kit Fisto, I think Plo Koon was there. No, Plo Koon wasn't there. They show him dying in a plane crash. But Kit Fisto was the only real other stronger one. The other Jedi masters weren't as strong as Mace and Kit Fisto. But they show you that Sidious kills them one by one, like one shots them, except for Mace. Mace is the only one that he can't just kill. And it basically showed you that if Anakin did not come at that time, Mace would have killed Sidious right then and there. He was a superior duelist. See? Mainly because, again, of his lightsaber farm. Mace Windu is one of the only, and the only one of his era, Jedi who created his own lightsaber farm. Yeah? And his lightsaber farm is actually, because Mace is a funny guy. It's funny, he's played by Samuel L. Jackson. He's a funny Jedi because Mace realized that he could tap into the dark side and draw power from it without actually going over to it. Yeah? So when he's fighting you, his style is based on that. It's based on him drawing power from the dark side. And it's even worse if you're a dark side user. If you're a Jedi, it's one thing. Yeah, because he can't really use the dark side power to use against you except for by force. But when you're a Sith, it makes it, him can beat you more easily. If there's any Jedi that have a farm trained to kill Sith, is Mace Windu. But Anakin goes to them, tells them, he sees them leave, and he knows, yo, they are going to kill him. What else can they do? They're going to go kill him. And he sits there for a while, and he's like, oh no, but if them came, who's going to save Padme? And so he rushes back to find Mace Windu with his lightsaber at Sidious's neck, only to be like, you can't kill him, you know, because I need him. At which point, Mace should have been like, what? But he says it, he's like, because Anakin tries to appeal to reason in that saying, or justice, if you will, in saying that, we can't just kill him, he has to stand trial. Yeah? And Mace Windu is right in saying, stand trial? The man controls the Senate. He controls the Senate. It's not like he doesn't justify it. He's like, he controls the Senate. He controls the courts. What kind of fair trial do you think will take place here? He is too dangerous to be kept alive, which is a fact. I'm not speaking any lies. He is too dangerous to be left alive. We have to kill him here and now. And Anakin makes his decision. He decides in that moment the Jedi are corrupt. Because if they weren't, they would spare him and give him a trial, not realizing the implications of that because of his naivety and his conditioning. But he goes on to chop off Mace's hand, and then Sidious Sith lightnings him and then throws him down like 200 stories because them buildings at all. You understand me? And there's like a whole city underneath because technically Coruscant is like a floating city in a sense. There's a city underneath Coruscant. So God knows if he fell underneath and went down there. So Mace Windu is definitely dead, even though Samuel L. Jackson says different. But who would expect him to say any less? But so that then he then pledges his loyalty to Sidious in that moment and becomes Darth Vader. And then it kicks off everything where Sidious then enacts, because he knows he has Anakin. And when he has, that's all this has been leading up to. From him have Anakin, him know him good. Execute Order 66. The Jedi are so dispersed. Another beautiful plan of how he did this thing. They are so dispersed that them cannot relate to each other what is taking place and then help each other. Like 9/11. See? It happening in such a shock and awe way that you cannot relate with each other. Because the Jets them were doing an exercise at the time that happened to be this exact thing. Yeah. And we sent everybody out there. So nobody can respond in time. How convenient. Yeah. Boom. Wipe them out in one stroke. Take over the galaxy in one stroke. Masterful plan by Palpatine. The man was a tactical genius.
And the music mirrors it too, because you at the time when you saw all of that calamity and catastrophe going on, you just hear the music, there's a swell.
Right.
You have to say,
right, it builds
you feel like tears are coming your eye.
And worse, because you know the implications of what Anakin is doing. Worse, because you know the implications of what Anakin is doing. You know doing this is going to lead to you turning into Darth Vader, into you going out to be a tyrant, into the most feared man in the galaxy. Yes? You know the most heartbreaking part, I think this is the most heartbreaking part, is that you know that his efforts are in vain. You know that him betraying the Jedi Order, joining Darth Sidious, means nothing in the way of his desires. Padme is still going to die. In fact, he's the reason she dies. Him doing what he does, as we said, as we see in many movies, the time cliche, if you will, in a sense, that you trying to control fate or destiny leads to fate and destiny happening. The thing you don't want to happen is going to happen. Frieza going to planet Vegeta and blowing up the planet, thinking, hey, I ain't not going to get no Super Saiyans now because they are dead. Creates the Super Saiyan. You understand me? You can't escape it. So he does all of this. Padme dies. He does not know. He believes his children died in childbirth as well. So he doesn't even know that he has children. We don't know what that effect would have had on him if in having his children, because that's the next thing, bro. Palpatine would have used that against him. No doubt. And that's why they had to hide Luke and Leia. Because Palpatine would have used the children against him. Chances are he would have gotten them, corralled them, and then trained them to be even more powerful dark side users, than him. Because at this point in time, after he was chopped in half and burnt to a crisp, Sidious saw him as useless. Well, not useless, but definitely not his successor. Because what in the whole tradition of the Sith, the rule of two, what Sidious anticipates is that Anakin is going to become my protege. Sooner or later, he's going to become more powerful than me. And in becoming more powerful than me, he's going to kill me. Yes, as Sidious did with Plagueis, and as Plagueis did with his master, and so on and so forth. And the tradition. But in that happening to him, Sidious knew, you will never be more powerful than me. You will never be the kind of Sith Lord that your potential to be the most powerful Sith Lord ever is now lost. And so now all you can be for me is an instrument of destruction. That is it. And that is what Vader became. In essence, a slave to Darth Sidious. Ironic, seeing that he was born a slave only to become a slave again by the end of his life, basically. Yeah. Luckily, he didn't die a slave because he vindicated himself by killing Sidious, and in that bringing balance to the Force. And they still don't explain how he became a Force ghost, because in the lore, there's a whole thing you have to do. Is that whole ritual you have to go through, in a sense, like a whole journey you have to go on to discover how to become a Force ghost. Yoda literally had to go on a whole journey and then teach Obi-Wan as well as Qui-Gon Jinn. Yes, teach him how to then transition and then become a Force ghost as well. And he just kind of does it, you know? Yeah, as I say, it is really the storytelling aspect of Star Wars. And as I said, anybody who has watched the Clone Wars series, both the animated one and the 3D kind of one, that's like 6-7 seasons long, 8 seasons, would know the deep storytelling in that entire saga, what took place behind the scenes in the years between the Clone Wars movie and the Revenge of the Sith movie, which is, when you look at it, incredibly important because it shows you Anakin's development. It introduces what you don't know, because if you do not watch those things, you don't know that Anakin had a Padawan called Ahsoka. Yes? And his raising of Ahsoka and eventual losing of Ahsoka also contributed to his disillusionment with the Jedi Order. The story of Anakin Skywalker is a really complex one, and done so intentionally to deepen the storytelling, which is so lush, as I tell you. And as I say, anybody who have a virgin who actually live in China, we've been having certain conversations about certain sci-fi stuff and fantasy stuff and IPs in that sense, like Dune, like Blade Runner, like even like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. Stuff with large stories, that are deep. And when I'm relating to him like Star Wars, he can't, because he never got into it. But he's not getting into it because he realizes how deep the storytelling is, how interesting it is as a story, as a concept, and how cool it is. I think that people realize how fucking cool Star Wars is with how it is displayed, with even the Sith, with lightsabers, with the battles, with even the clones and the different starships. It's a really cool thing. The different star systems and planets and how they set up those planets, the different races of people. To me, as I say, it is the pinnacle of science fiction. It is the pinnacle of storytelling. It is one of, if not the greatest movie series. Because to be honest, if I have to say the greatest movie series, I would say The Godfather. But the part 3 solicits it for me. So we're going Star Wars, one of the greatest of all time.
Oh yeah.
Part 3 of Star Wars, I think, in the prequel series. And it's funny, the amount of hate. If you remember, you must remember how people hated the prequel series even after Revenge of the Sith. People were like, "Lord, it destroyed what was George Lucas thinking?" And then over time, with rewatches, with the Clone Wars series expanding on that lore and that understanding of what was happening at that time, and the building of the characters of Obi-Wan and Anakin, and exploring what the Jedi Council was doing, and how the atmosphere of the galaxy at the time, and how they were turning against the Jedi. When you look at all of that, as I say, you get to understand the bigger picture and why the prequel series is so important to the storytelling, especially going back to the original series with Luke Skywalker and Leia and all of that. Wow, it set that up so perfectly. And then the sequel series came out, and then we're like, oh yeah, no. Without a doubt, the prequel series were a gem. Yes. And I think we're going to keep it like that. because the prequel, the sequel series to me as a Star Wars fan was a slap in the face. I shit on that series, I spit on that series because it is not good. It just ruins, in my opinion, all of that world building that George Lucas was doing. Even the whole concept of the chosen one, with balancing the force, everything that happened in Return of the Jedi and at the end of that movie, bringing it to such a crescendo and a perfect close and climax for them to be like, oh yeah, Sidious never died and he was alive this whole time, building a secret army out in the galaxy. And the real one who's going to kill him and bring balance is this girl who don't know nothing about the Jedi, nothing about the Force, nothing about nothing, but we're just going to give her all the powers and all of the expertise and techniques we need her to. And she's going to go on to destroy and kill everybody and kill Sidious, then bring balance to the Force and make every single dead Jedi feel happy. Me don't believe that, and I do, up to this day, I reject it. I reject Disney.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that you hate to see happen to a beloved series, whether it be a TV show or a movie, where, people just come and just decide, say, oh, we're going to subvert all of your expectations. We're not going to use any of canon. We're going to be like, all right, let's just go from the drawing board and just pick some things or what they like that little
right, and do some
thing
stuff that we think are cool.
Put it together. Yeah.
Going back to the impact of Star Wars, if you've noticed in the last, I would say 15 years, since the prequel series, there has been an upsurge of science fiction interest. This is clearly reflected in the turnouts at conventions like Comic-Con and stuff like that, where you see this large science fiction presence. People who used to, and that's why I say, like, it's become cool now. It's really and truly become cool. And I'm not putting all of that. I'm not putting all of that on Star Wars, but I'm putting a lot on them. Because when you go, you see a very heavy Star Wars presence. Yes?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so I believe Star Wars contributed a very lot, a whole heap to science fiction then becoming a cool thing in pop culture amongst the general populace, amongst the general public, for people to say, hey, this is something we can enjoy without being a nerd. You understand me? In opening the door to other things, I mean, this day and age that people can get into. Like I said, like with me transitioning to Dune, and it's partially because of my Star Wars history and that whole thing and my love of lore. That I can go into that and enjoy it off the bat. Yeah? A lot of people are now enjoying it just like that. And I give Star Wars the credit for that.
Hey man, I would like to thank you, everybody, to be able to listen to this podcast. I have to deliver this one because it's so special, And again, I want to thank my guest. It was very, very wonderful. Was able to give us even more of the lore, more of the science fiction. It was a wonderful podcast. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Dre, for inviting me. Really appreciate it. It is my pleasure to be here and talk Star Wars with you. It's been a while since you and I talk really and truly in general. So it's funny, the first time, we talk again is we talk in Star Wars. But it's really been a blast. I've really enjoyed myself. And I hope that the listeners enjoyed it. I hope they keep tuning in to Code Flix, listening to the episodes. I mean, it's a great podcast. I hope they're entertained. I hope this one definitely entertained them. And, I hope they look forward to the others in the future, especially the ones that I am inviting on.
So at this time, I'd like to encourage you to subscribe and follow the podcast for future deep dives in a world of science fiction. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. We're on a road to 500. Let's do it, guys. See you next time.